I genetically altered a billionaire's son. Part 2. Written by N.S. Lewis. A couple of nights ago, I attempted to make a chicken cashew dish. I skimped on the ingredients and didn't plan the timing very well while I was cooking. I was rewarded with a mess that was both mushy and tough, and wholly inedible. A couple of years ago, I edited a few thousand nucleotides out of the billions in Devin Minkowski's genome, recklessly risking his life. My motives were purely selfish, and what emerged from the procedure was a violent psychopath, focused on exacting revenge on his father for not loving him for what he was before. What comes out is a function of what goes in. I say this as a scientist and a human being. We reap what we sow. Thank you to all who read my previous post, and to those who offered solutions to my problem. I read them all and appreciate the thought that went into them. Many of the suggestions were all but impossible to follow through with, but the people making them couldn't have known that, because I did a poor job of properly explaining the situation. For 8 months, Devin watched me. He had some kind of surveillance on me no matter where I went, and in our communications, he would constantly remind me of this by dropping some mundane detail of something that I had done that day. "How was the Cobb salad, Doctor?" Meanwhile, I had no idea where Devin or my family was holed up. The fact of Devin's surveillance alone cut off many of my options. Even without the particular imbalance, Devin held untold advantages over me in the form of billions of dollars and the personal connection that came with those dollars. To give a small example, the one time that I met with Devin in person at a cafe, he brought along 2 bodyguards. I also know, or at least strongly suspect, that Devin had many high-level officials and professionals in his pocket. If not, then how did the fictional boating accident that killed Devin's parents so easily become a fact? I do want to mention one suggestion that I saw appear often in the comments, namely that I should modify my own genes in order to make myself more intelligent. I had toyed with this idea near the start of this nightmare, but abandoned it for a few different reasons. First, it would take too long. Second, I already possessed most of the variants that I had edited into Devin's code, and so was unlikely to see a massive improvement. Still, after I read these comments, I revisited the idea. I opened up Devin's case file again and spent several hours poring over it. Maybe there had been one tweak which had made a dramatic, rapid difference, and maybe it was one that I could make in myself. As I was looking through the file, which included a series of photographs, I marveled again at how completely different Devin had grown in the course of a year. Almost nothing about him was the same. And then, there in my house, which felt both empty without my family and intruded upon by the hidden surveillance equipment, I had a realization. Almost nothing about Devin was the same. That meant that some things were. 2 days ago, I received a message from a man named Elias Kaune, telling me that he had found a solution to my problem. He wanted to make me an offer. The message directed me to a post on r/nosleep, which can be found below. My curiosity grew to excitement as I read Elias's post. He appeared to be an experienced biologist. Maybe he had found a way to successfully graft pig appendages onto humans. and maybe this would be acceptable to Devin. It sounds terrible that I was excited about the prospect of grafting a pig's nose and ears onto a human head, but you have to understand the alternatives. It was better than actually turning the Minkowskis wholesale into pigs, and it was certainly better than the murder of my wife and son. As I read on, my stomach dropped. Elias was no biologist. At least, not in the ordinary sense. He was into some dark and horrible shit. I read in horror as Elias described drugging his assistant, performing some sort of unholy ritual, and turning her into a monstrous, deformed swine. I thought of that poor woman, screaming, trapped in the body of a pig, and picked up my phone to call the police. This is what you asked for, I thought, putting the phone back down on my desk. You did this. I got up, dizzy, and poured myself a scotch. Then I took a long shower, thinking about what I was going to do. I just wanted it to be over with. I just wanted my family back. I dried myself off and then messaged Devin with a link to Elias Kaune's post. Even after my shower, I felt dirty and hungry. I hadn't been taking care of myself since that terrible day at the Minkowski Theater when Devin abducted my family. I decided that I needed my strength to do what I was about to do, but when I looked through the cupboard, there was no food there. Devin called me while I was in the supermarket, picking out a chicken breast for dinner. "This could work, Doctor," he said. "I need to put eyes on it, make sure it's real. Finish up your shopping and then head home. There will be a package there for you. Message this Mr. Kaune and set up a meeting. I already know his address. It's only a 5-hour drive from you. I would prefer if you could make it there tonight. If the pig checks out, I could book you a hotel nearby and be on a plane in the area by morning. I am just as anxious to have this done and over with as you must be. My father's whining has grown intolerable. Any questions?" "What if he's a serial killer?" I asked, as a woman pushed her cart by me, staring. She could have been one of Devin's agents, or she could have just been startled by the flash of the conversation she heard. "What happens if I go there on your behalf and I'm murdered? What happens to my family?" "It's in their best interest that you stay alive, Doctor, and mine. That's part of what the package is for. You're prepared to pay the price he's asking?" "I don't know what that is yet," I said. "Does it matter?" "No," I said, and hung up. I checked my list. All that was left was the garlic, cashews, and honey? I had to buy a whole jar of honey for one dish? I decided to skip the honey. Maybe that's what ruined it. When I got home, the package wasn't on my front steps. It was sitting on my living room couch. Inside were 2 items: a pair of eyeglasses and a pistol. The glasses came with some simple instructions. They had a camera in them. It looked as though, rather than Devin spying on me, I would be doing the spying for him this time. I messaged Elias Kaune, telling him that I wanted to meet tonight and to verify that the ritual was legitimate and not just a hocus-pocus show. As I was cooking dinner, my phone notified me of Elias's response. "My esteemed Dr. Lewis, I am delighted that you are interested in pursuing a relationship. I have no commitments upon this dark and delving evening, and would be well pleased to more formally make your acquaintance." He gave me his address, I wrote back that I would be there in several hours, and so it was arranged. As I was communicating with Elias, and the garlic burned, the dish was a disaster. I arrived at Kaune's estate just after midnight, the gun tucked into my waist and the glasses hooked over my ears. I approached a wide set of gates, flanked by 2 torches, with yellow flame dancing in the moonless night. The gates swung slowly open with a long, and I drove on until I reached a massive stone building, faintly lit by more torches. I stepped out of the car and heard all manner of chirping and grunting coming from behind his house. That's right, I thought, trying to let my rational brain push down the fear. He said he has a private zoo. I approached a large wooden door with an iron knocker in the shape of a crow. I shuddered as I grasped the cold metal and knocked. No one answered. I kept knocking, banging harder and harder, the sound filling the night. At last, the door swung open, and there was Elias Kaune, looking every bit as evil as I had imagined him. "Dr. Lewis," he said in a thin, barely audible voice, "you must excuse me. I am not as quick on my feet as I once was, and, as you know, my assistant has recently taken a leave of absence." My stomach tightened, but I held my composure. "Let me see her," I said. "Of course. Come in." I stepped in and looked around. The walls and the floor were constructed of stone, as was the winding staircase to the second floor. Sconces holding lit candles lined the wall, except where there were bookcases overflowing with thick and ancient tomes. "Follow me, Dr. Lewis." We walked around the corner to a wooden door, behind which was another set of stone stairs heading down. As soon as Elias pushed the door open, I heard it. A woman whimpering in anguish and despair. I shivered and followed Elias as he took a torch from the wall and walked down the steps. A faint, unpleasant smell grew stronger as we descended. It smelled like a pig pen. Then we were on a dirt floor. I could only see for the few feet illuminated by Elias's torch, but I could hear the horrible noises growing louder. Then I saw it. The hooves first, cracked and crooked, and then a sinewy leg, and finally the torso of the beast. 6 pairs of human female breasts hung from its heaving pig belly. I couldn't hold back and vomited on the dirt. Elias let out a soft chuckle. "Are you satisfied?" he asked. I steeled myself and took the torch from him, holding it up to the thing's whimpering face. There, behind a bloated pig's nose, were 2 human eyes, full of human tears, full of human pain. "Can you turn her back?" I asked. "The flower fades to make fruit. The fruit rots to make earth. Out of the mother and through the spring, exultances, ripeness and decadence, and home to the mother. She will turn back, Dr. Lewis, in her own fashion." I pulled out my phone and typed a message to Devin. "Do you see?" I got an immediate reply. "Good. I will be there in the morning. I am sorry, I said to the beast. I pulled the gun from my waist and cocked it. I saw the flickering flame reflected in the creature's eyes, and I thought a flash of relief. With a trembling hand, I fired a bullet into its head, and it dropped away into the darkness as my ears rang from the shot. Now we shall discuss terms, said Elias, taking the torch from me and turning back to the stairs. He led us up and into a kitchen, where there was a wooden table and ancient, non-electric appliances. Sit, he said, indicating a chair. I looked around. There was a window on one wall. I'd rather stand, thank you, I said, leaning up against it. Oh, to be a young stallion once again, said Elias, sitting down and groaning softly as he did so. What's the price? I asked, crossing my hands behind my back. My masters have become very keen on you and your methods. They request your services. Who are your masters? Should you accept, you will come to know them, said Elias. What services do they request? Whatever is required. You are to be in their employ for 20 years' time. If you choose to leave after the hourglass has run its course, you are free to do so. However, none have so chosen yet. Whatever is required? I asked. Do I get to live at home with my family? As you may have observed, I am currently in need of assistance around my house. This is where you will begin your apprenticeship. You will live with me. My heart was pounding. My wife, I thought. My son. I'm doing this for them. And that's it? My family isn't involved at all. Not in the least, said Elias, waving his liver-spotted hand through the air. Rather, your old family will not be involved. You will come to think of us as a new family, Dr. Lewis. I promise you. All right, I said, reaching up into my right sleeve behind my back. Excellent, said Elias. The contract is all drawn up. You merely need to sign it. I pulled the plastic baggie out of my sleeve. Not yet, I said. It's not you. It's on my end. Before I sign anything, I want to see my family, here, in front of me. I sprinkled some dust on the windowsill. I understand, said Elias, flashing an unsettling grin. You do not trust the younger Minkowski. That is quite wise of you. I suspect that his hatred is pure, and he will be quite eager to do the deed and make the exchange. However, we will wait. We'll be here tomorrow. If he brings my wife and my boy, I'll sign the contract. Tomorrow, then, said Elias. I would see you out myself, but I am not as sprightly as once before. You understand. I can see myself out, I said, wiping the last of the dust from my hands. The next day, I was back at Elias's kitchen table, this time sitting. Elias was at the wood stove, brewing up some tea. I decided that I wasn't going to have any. I looked out the window, which was beginning to fog up with condensation, and saw an SUV pull into the driveway. I watched as two large men exited, Devon's bodyguards. One of them opened a door that Devon Minkowski stepped out of, while the other began roughly pulling passengers out. First came Mr. Minkowski, then Mrs. Minkowski, both with their hands bound behind their backs. I stood up and wiped the condensation off the window and peered out as another passenger was yanked from the SUV. It was my wife. I hadn't seen her in 8 months. She was beautiful and terrified. My son followed behind her. I watched as one of Devon's bodyguards tied them to a tree, its branches swaying in the cold wind. I met the rest of the party at the front door. "You see, Doctor," said Devon, smiling, "I've brought your family. Once the transformation is complete, they are free. You have my word." "What the fuck is going on, Doc?" asked Mr. Minkowski. "The little shit won't say." "How?" said Devon, nodding to one of his bodyguards. "I believe that the doctor has a pistol on him. Would you do me a favor and pat him down?" Hal patted me down and found the gun. He pulled it from my waist and finished searching me. "Fair enough," I said. "Follow me." I led the procession into the kitchen. We all took a seat at the table, except the 2 hired thugs, who remained standing. "Are you prepared to sign, Dr. Lewis?" asked Elias, sliding parchment across the table with a hand trembling from old age. "What the fuck, Doc?" said Mr. Minkowski. "You're fucking me, aren't you? I made you a rich man, and this is the thanks I get." "He's going to turn you into—" I began. "No!" shouted Devon, slamming his hand on the table. "You will not ruin the surprise!" "Turn us into what?" asked Mrs. Minkowski, sobbing. "Will you sign?" asked Elias. A line of sweat ran down my forehead. "Damn it," I said. "It's hot. That stove. All these people here. It's too much. I can't think. Can we open a window?" Devon shrugged. "Hal," he said to the bodyguard who was standing next to the window, "open the window." Hal reached to lift the window. "It's stuck," he said. "Come on," I groaned. "It's so fucking hot." "You have to bang it," said Elias. Hal drove his palm up, and the window jiggled, giving a hint of opening. Then he did it again, and the window shot up and open. A puff of dust flew through the air. I looked at Devon and watched as his eyes grew wide in amazement. He struggled to breathe, but no breath came. He began to bang his hand on the table. The room broke into chaos as Hal drew his gun and pointed it at everyone in turn. The other bodyguard rushed to Devon and tried to apply the Heimlich. Even if he had done it properly, it would have been useless. Devon was experiencing anaphylaxis due to his cashew allergy. As Devon's face started to swell, he stopped thrashing and turned to look at me. I returned his gaze. "I'm sorry," I tried to say with my eyes. "Truly, I am sorry." And then Devon sent a message of his own with his eyes. "Fuck you," it said. Last night, as my wife slept next to me, I had the first of what are sure to be many nightmares. I was standing in a corner watching. Devon, as he was before the procedures, was holding out a single flower to his father. Mr. Minkowski slapped Devon's hand away, and Devon began crying. I opened an ancient book written in a foreign language and began reading from it. Devon screamed and then transformed into a hideous pig similar to the one I saw in Elias's basement. I walked over and stabbed it in the throat, blood gushing into my face. I awoke screaming. We reap what we sow.